All right. The quiz yesterday, y'all did well. If you need to make up the quiz, come see me. Let's try and get it done before spring break, please. No, they. I will get them in. I'll probably do it during homeroom or advisory or whatever we call it. And then, yeah, because it's just, I got busy yesterday. I'm sorry. I'll let you guys down again. I'm slipping. There we go. Okay. Type 1 and type 2 errors. All right. So when you're finding enough statistical evidence to reject a null hypothesis, you will note that we will never use the word prove. Okay? We're always using something that we have evidence. We don't always use the word prove in anything 100% certainty. Therefore, there's always the possibility our study might have it wrong. This can happen even in extremely well-researched projects. The error is not necessarily anyone's fault. It's just a byproduct of using random samples. Okay, type 1 error. Type 1 error. We reject the null when it's true. Okay? Reject the null when it happens to be true. Okay, that's a type 1 error. Type 2 error, we fail to reject the null when it is false. Okay, so type 1 and type 2 errors can indeed take place. They do indeed take place. And it's not just because we're bad people. It's because we are picking a random sample. Obviously, the larger the random sample, the less chance for errors, but errors still truly can take place. Okay. All right. Example 1 says, let's assume that we are studying whether global warming is occurring. So the hypothesis, global warming is not occurring. Our alternative, global warming is occurring. If our study makes a type 1 error, this means we found strong evidence for global warming that is not actually occurring. The consequence for our study is that we making a type 1 error might be that we might promote expensive, cumbersome laws that aren't needed. Okay, so this again is just an example, so don't take this as gospel. If our study makes a type 2 error, this means we failed to find strong evidence for global warming that is actually occurring. The consequence for making a type 2 error is we might be too slow to respond to a significant change to our climate. Okay. Hey, friends, under your example 2, is there like a big blank? You show, but it says example 2, and then there's there a blank, or does it give a hypothesis and an alternative? Okay. So it was just that they don't have the null and the alternative written, or do you? You do? Oh, because mine's gone. So let's see. Example 2 says, let's assume we are studying whether Batman saves lives. So our null is, what did they say on yours? Batman does not save lives. Yeah, mine just didn't print, I guess. My alternative is Batman does save lives. And I hear. Thanks, man. Okay, if I could write, this would be better. Okay, so if our study makes a type 1 error, this means we found strong evidence that Batman saves lives when he really doesn't. The consequence for our study making in type 1 error might be that we encourage Batman a bit too much. Okay, kind of goofy talking about Batman. I mean, it's a character, but it is what it is. If we make a type 2 error, this means we failed to find strong evidence that Batman saves lives when he really does. The consequence for making a type 2 error is we might pressure Batman to quit and crime will increase. Ha ha ha. We had to have a little comics in there. Example 3 says, let's assume that we are studying whether not a daily aspirin in older people reduces the risk of heart attack. So our hypothesis would be daily aspirin has no effect on heart attack risk in older people. Our alternative, a daily aspirin, lowers the risk of heart attack in older people. If our study makes a type 1 error, this means we found strong evidence that our daily aspirin lowers the risk of heart attack when it really does not. Okay? So the consequence of this is people are just arbitrarily taking aspirin, which probably wouldn't harm them, though it would thin their blood a little bit. If we made a type 2 error, that means we failed to find strong evidence that aspirin reduces the risk of heart attack when it really does reduce the risk of heart attack. Consequence of type 2 is we might be missing an opportunity to prevent heart attacks. So again, our big words, we have the null, we have the alternative. We test the alternative, and then we use terms to fail to reject the null, and this just meant evidence supports HA, and this deals with the p-value that is less than 0.05. And then we also have the other thing where we could reject the null. Okay, so this tells us that fail to reject the null. Oh, this would. I went backwards. I'm so sorry. So if we fail to reject the null, that means we are accepting the null. That means our p-value was greater than 0.05. So evidence not found for HA. Okay, fail to reject. If we reject the null, our p-value is less than 0.05. Evidence supports HA. All right, so type 1, type 2 error that we said, type 1 error, we reject the null when it's really true. Type 2, we fail to reject the null when it's really false. Okay, friends, hot topics out there. We hit one of the hot topics right there, the whole global warming. Okay, is it or is it not happening? Science community is pointing to it. Now, some of these screaming heads out there that have all these followers because everything's a conspiracy. Don't get me wrong, I love conspiracies, but I like the UFO conspiracies, and I love the JFK conspiracies, and I like Area 51 conspiracies. I like that stuff. So, with that known, my friends, the type 1 and type 2 errors can indeed take place. They can impact in a negative way if we had a type 1 or type 2 error. So we just have to make sure that we feel comfortable with our data, and that's where we start using the information that is protecting the researcher. I mean, nobody wants to get sued. If someone came out and said, hey, you said this in your statistics, then we could hide behind it might be a type 1 or type 2 error. Let's see if that, dude, it let me in after an update. Call it type 1, type 2. It'll confuse my Algebra 1 kids. What's a type 1 and 2? So, does this make sense? Type 1, we fail to reject the null when it's really true. Type 2, we fail to reject the null. We fail to reject the null that is really false. So those are two different aspects to it. I like the aspirin study. It seems legitimate. You've probably heard that people take small doses of aspirin each day to make things good. We got a game today, Reed?
No.
Or you just didn't have anything to wear?
This is my outfit.
I like it. So, we feel okay with that, friends? All right. 6164. All right, I think you guys could hang with page 99 and 100. You have the rest of the period to work on it. Can we get